Kimmi has finally revealed what LaTisha and Marsau have been hiding for years, and the truth behind the smiles is far more complicated than fans ever imagined. For a long time, when people looked at Black Love on television, LaTisha and Marsau Scott were seen as one of the strongest couples. They had the big house, the businesses, the kids, and a family unit that looked picture perfect. On the surface, they seemed untouchable, and many viewers believed their relationship was the example of how a couple could stick together and grow. But just because something looks good on the outside doesn't mean it's healthy on the inside. Behind the cameras, behind the matching smiles, and behind the family image, cracks had already been forming for years. And now those cracks are being revealed. For Marsau, his public image was everything. He carried himself as the calm businessman who always had the right answer, the smooth talker who could charm anyone without really saying much. LaTisha, on the other hand, played the role of the loyal wife who stood by her man no matter what. She smiled through everything, gave the impression that all was well, and always tried to hold the family image together. But that smile wasn't the smile of a woman who was happy. It was the smile of a woman who was surviving. The whispers started small. Fans began noticing little things. A shady Instagram comment here, a missing wedding ring there. LaTisha looking distant at certain events, while Marsau seemed absent from her posts. These weren't loud alarms at first, but they were signs. People who paid close attention started asking questions. And then the rumors started growing louder, building into something that couldn't be ignored anymore. DMs began leaking, screenshots surfaced, and receipts piled up. It was like a game of Jenga, and everyone knew eventually the whole thing was going to collapse. According to people close to the situation, the turning point came when LaTisha received a message from a fan. This wasn't just a troll or someone looking to stir drama. It was someone who seemed genuinely concerned. The fan had a screenshot of Marsau allegedly chatting with another woman. The conversation didn't look innocent. It wasn't the kind of harmless chat you could brush off. It looked flirty, maybe even more than that. When LaTisha saw it, her heart sank. She was crushed. Marsau swore it was fake, but LaTisha wasn't convinced. That message was the spark that lit the fire. What shocked everyone wasn't Marsau's reaction, it was LaTisha's. Instead of breaking down in front of everyone or rushing to expose him, she went silent. But this wasn't the silence of a woman who was defeated. It was the silence of a woman who was calculating, who was preparing her next move. She wasn't going to fall apart, she was going to figure things out on her own terms. And that's exactly what she did. Behind closed doors, LaTisha started moving differently. Reports say she quietly reached out to a lawyer. Not to file for divorce, at least not yet, but to start setting boundaries. She wanted to draw financial lines, legal lines, and make sure she wasn't left vulnerable. One of the first things she did was freeze one of their shared business accounts, specifically one tied to their Black Cigar Lounge venture. She suspected that Marsau had been using money from the business for activities that had nothing to do with work. While she was securing her side, Marsau was too busy trying to keep up his image online. He posted subtle jabs on social media, talking about disloyal women and fake stories. But fans saw right through it. They recognized the gaslighting and manipulation, and many began to rally behind LaTisha, but this wasn't just about cheating. It went deeper than that. Family members got involved, friends took sides, and even cast members whispered behind the scenes. Insiders said there were group chats filled with screenshots, voice notes, and even secret recordings. It was like something out of a spy movie. And then came the real blow. LaTisha's mother, Miss Wanda, had been collecting her own receipts. She had been watching her daughter's marriage crumble and decided to do some digging herself. When Miss Wanda confronted Marsau with evidence, screenshots and voice notes, LaTisha was blindsided. She had no idea her own mother had gone into detective mode. Instead of feeling grateful, she felt exposed and betrayed. From there, everything exploded. Tensions hit the roof, cameras stopped rolling at certain points, and the marriage that once looked perfect was shattering in front of the world. But LaTisha didn't break down publicly. She didn't run to Instagram with a long caption or pour her heart out in a dramatic video. What she did instead was much colder. She packed a few bags, took the kids, and moved into an Airbnb across town. She went silent. No calls, no texts, no posts. Just peace. For the first time, it was Marsau who had to sit in the discomfort of not knowing what was coming next. By day 4, Marsau showed up at the Airbnb, trying to smooth things over with that same charm he had always relied on. But this time, it didn't work. LaTisha didn't even open the door. She texted him instead, "You always say you need space to think. Now it's my turn." That was when Marsau began to panic. Not because he was losing her emotionally, but because he was losing control. And for a man like him, that was the ultimate fear. Meanwhile, LaTisha was taking things further. She quietly hired a private investigator. Nobody knew, not her friends, not the producers, not even her mom. She wanted facts, not just rumors. And the PI delivered. Reports say Marsau was making late-night visits to a woman's house in Birmingham. Same car, same time, multiple nights. LaTisha now had timestamps, not just whispers. While she was gathering evidence, Marsau was falling apart in real time. He filled Instagram with cryptic posts like, "People love to play victim when they're really the villain," and "Loyalty isn't loud, it's real." But fans weren't fooled. The comment sections turned into war zones, with people dragging him non-stop. One comment cut deep, "You gaslight better than you build, and that says a lot." Still, Marsau didn't stop there. He tried to cut LaTisha out of their shared business, removing her name from flyers, locking her out of company files, and even telling the accountant she was mismanaging money. But when the accountant reviewed everything, LaTisha's side was spotless. Instead, there were suspicious payments made to a name that no one recognized, which turned out to be linked to that Birmingham address. That was the breaking point. LaTisha stopped protecting the image. She agreed to sit down for a private interview with a major black media outlet. Though the full footage hasn't been released, a leaked behind-the-scenes clip sent the internet into a frenzy. In the clip, LaTisha said, "Silence is no longer strength. It's suffering. And I refuse to suffer in silence any longer." The phrase, "LaTisha speak," started trending online. Even Melody Sherry, who hasn't always been close to her, liked the clip and reposted it. That moment marked a shift. For the first time in their marriage, LaTisha held the power. Marsau wasn't calm anymore. He was unraveling. A leaked voicemail showed him lashing out, saying, "Don't forget who made you. You want war, you got it." It was threatening, bitter, and ego-driven. LaTisha didn't even respond. Instead, she posted a black screen with one line, "A man who tries to control you after losing control was never in love. He was obsessed." It was a mic drop moment. Fans everywhere praised her strength, but the story didn't end there. Marsau, desperate to save face, turned his frustration on the show's producers. He demanded editing rights, threatening to pull out of the next season unless they painted him in a better light. He claimed the narrative was twisted, that he was being set up as the villain. But fans didn't buy it. They had already seen the evidence, the behavior, and the unraveling. The image of the composed businessman was gone. Now he just looked like a man losing control. Carlos King, the producer, had to step in. He scheduled a Zoom call with both Marsau and LaTisha, hoping to keep the drama on the show instead of spilling all over the internet. But Marsau didn't want boundaries. He wanted revenge. He accused LaTisha of ruining the family brand and threatened legal action if certain scenes aired. Calm and steady, LaTisha simply told him, "You don't own the truth. It exposes itself." And expose it did. Soon after, legal papers were filed. Not for divorce just yet, but for a legal separation. The documents weren't symbolic, they had power. They outlined asset divisions, custody terms, and even a clause requiring Marsau to undergo a psychological evaluation before being considered for joint custody. Fans were stunned. This wasn't just reality TV drama. This was real life. The fallout affected everything. Marsau's business reputation took a major hit. Invitations slowed, partnerships became distant, and even Black Cigar Lounge felt the pressure. Meanwhile, LaTisha began stepping into her own spotlight. She was invited to speak at a women's empowerment conference, where she walked on stage dressed in all white, standing strong and confident. Without naming names, she spoke her truth, saying, "You can't build a future with someone who sees you as an accessory to their ego." That clip went viral. Brands began reaching out, speaking invitations flooded in, and LaTisha was finally being seen as more than just Marsau's wife, but Marsau's spiral continued. Another leak hit social media, showing a suspicious consulting payment linked to the same woman in Birmingham. This time, even Maurice, Marsau's own brother, was reportedly furious. He confronted him privately, asking if he was willing to lose everything over this. Marsau's response? "She'll come back. She always does." But this time, she didn't. LaTisha moved into her own townhouse, enrolled her kids in a new school, switched cars, and even changed her phone number. These weren't temporary moves, they were permanent changes. She wasn't waiting for him anymore. She was building a new life without him. The final moment that shocked fans came when Carlos announced that at the reunion, LaTisha would read a letter she had written to herself during her darkest days of separation. When she read it, the room went silent. It wasn't about revenge, it wasn't about dragging Marsau. It was about reclaiming her voice. Everyone in that room respected her strength. She didn't choose revenge, she chose freedom. And that became the most powerful twist of all.